Hey, welcome. We're going to talk image competition. I'm going to go through the rules and I'm going to go through some of the categories. I'm going to talk about key lines. I'm going to show you how to do those. And I figure for those of you who've been entering competition, a lot of this is just going to be old hat for you, but maybe some good refreshers. But really, this is for the new member or the new individual that's looking at getting into image competition or just needs a refresher. I encourage you to read the rules. Make sure that you're very familiar with those. Those are on the IEPPV website. And any other competitions that you enter, make sure you read their rules as well because there's variations. We all have different variations in our rules, from PPA to PPC to other states. They all have their own set of rules and how they do those. So right away, what I want to do is first of all enter competition. It's good for you. It's good for your work. It's good for your images. If you've made it through the first two episodes that I recorded, we've said that a lot. I just want to make sure that you guys are really encouraged to do that. Have thick skin. Just hang in there, but it'll be worth it. You can always reach out to any of us at ieppv.com. And if you have any questions, reach out on our Facebook page, reach out on any of our communications. President at IEPPV, Image Comp at IEPPV. It all reaches us somehow, and we're happy to help. I'm Troy. I'm Troy Miller, and I'm a chairman of the board, I think, this year, past president. I've been doing this a long time. Got my PPA master's, so I've been doing a lot of teaching. So we've all been in it, and we're here to help you. So let's get started. So one of the things I thought would be really good is to kind of go over like categories, key lines, what sizes, how to save, kind of remove all that confusion. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to go kind of fast because nobody wants to sit and listen to me talk for 30 minutes about boring stuff. So anyway, so what I've got in front of me right here is I actually have the rules. Okay, so let's switch over that. You can kind of see the rules. All right, see that sitting on top of my Capture One. We're going to get into some image play here in a little bit. But anyway, so in the rules, one of the things that's specific to IEPPV is that we have two categories. We have two divisions. We have a regular division and we have a master's division. The purpose of the master's division is if you're a PPC, PPA, WPPI, or other level state national affiliate credentialed photographer, like a master's photographer, we want you to enter. Actually, you have to enter in our master division. And the reason is that, we don't want our master photographers competing with sort of the incoming and non-masters, right? Because it's a different category. So just realize that whatever category or whatever division you enter at the beginning of the year or for your first competition, you have to stay there for the rest of the year. Okay, so you got to stick to that. If you're coming from another affiliate, so let's say you're a PPOC or a PPC or another state affiliate, if you've merited there, you're able to enter at the IEPPV competition, but only in the master's division, which means you have to stay in the master's division. And the whole purpose of that is the goal of the competition is to move up. Okay, so if you've merited at a basic level, we'll call it a basic level or a basic division or regular division. We don't want you taking those merits and going to another regular division and meriting, because technically you've already merited, right? We want you to move up. So IEPPV's master division is kind of in between our regular division at affiliate level and the state affiliate, and then other levels up from there. So you might say it would go from IEPPV regular, IEPPV master, then you could go to like PPC, California, Colorado, Arizona, whatever those states are, and then up to nationals. Anything that's merited up doesn't come down, right? You've already earned higher awards. Don't bring that stuff down. Okay, another really important part of anything that we're doing here is sizing your image. So there are some rules in here: 4,000 pixels, 200 pixel PPI, sRGB or Adobe RGB color space. If you don't understand those things, I'll go over that later. And then image quality. I'm going to go over all that stuff for you guys a little bit later, but just know that they're in the rules and you need to read them, and they're different for every competition. Okay. The scoring system is in here, so what you might expect. This is probably very familiar for a lot of you. What you might get here as far as like scoring goes, the goal is to get above a merit. that goes to your year-end awards and how they're calculated. Okay. So let's talk about categories real quick. There's a lot of confusion about categories. So we have a workshop category. So basically, within the IEPPV rules, if you have taken images at a class, workshop, under the guidance of an instructor, or within the vicinity, I mean, if there's an event that happened because there's instruction happening, that's a workshop category image. You don't enter that into any of the regular categories. The premise behind that is that these are images that you would not have been able to create yourself because somebody put on the event for you to create those images. We want you to be able to enter images that you created completely under your own power, right? Under your own skill. So now what we're going to do, we're going to look at commercial. So you can read the rules here, but basically commercial is under the idea that commercial photography involves taking pictures for commercial use where images are used to promote or sell a product or service. You can read that. Just something to be really aware of, okay, is that the judges are going to look at each of these categories differently. So in commercial, judges are going to look at that category and they're going to expect that you have full control over the room, over the lighting, over the color contamination, over, let's say you're doing an architectural shot and it's inside the vase, like how the vase is turned, how healthy the flowers look. Like they expect you to have 100% control over everything. So in this category, you'll hear them say, oh, that vertical is not right. That horizontal is not right. That corner is out of focus. This is a little hot spot. That's commercial. You have full control. Okay, so our next category is landscape and master landscape. So you'll notice that we have those two categories. The rules are basically the same. So this is an outdoor environment. The judges are going to look at this and they're going to realize that you may not have control over the lighting. You may not have control over the weather, right? But you can choose when to be there. So a lot of times the judges will look at these scenes and they'll say, oh, well, this is a beautiful shot of, Horseshoe Bend, but you need to come back during better weather. Right. Just a beautiful scene doesn't always work. So I want to make sure that you think about how unique your shot is in landscape. Nature is very much the same way. There are some rules at IEPPV. Basically, this is flora or fauna in its natural habitat. So animals, plants, things like that in the natural habitat, things that are captured or things that are put in a vase. They're not able to enter in this category. So if you've got some beautiful lavender that you've picked and you've preened and you've made it perfect and you put it in a vase, it is no longer nature, right? That could go into illustrative or digital artistry or something like that. Under the nature category, the judges should be looking at and will most likely be looking at the idea that, the pose of the animal and, the scenery and the light on your subject isn't necessarily in your control. But again, however, light quality matters, composition matters, the 12 elements matter. And we'll look at the 12 elements in a little bit. Okay, so the next category would be photojournalism. This is just very much as you would expect, pretty much anything that you could do in a dark room, if you know what that is. Color correction, dodge and burn. You can convert it to black and white. Monochromatic is also okay, but as long as it doesn't change the original intent of the image. No pixel pushing. You cannot add, you cannot remove elements you cannot add or remove elements to or from the image in photojournalism. Oftentimes you will be asked for the raw file. So we will look at the raw file. If we see that you've pushed some pixels around, you can and will be disqualified from that. Okay, the master portrait or the portrait category. These are images of a person, pet, or animals in an environment in which the photographer has control over the lighting, posing, wardrobe, etc. Some examples would be, family, children, pets. You can read that. The advice that I want to give you here is very much like the commercial category. The judges are going to expect that you have full control over your subject, meaning, if there's a hair that's coming across into somebody's face, or the shirt is tilted or something like that, or the color harmony is off, or the pose is stiff and rigid, or the lighting is terrible, you have full control over that, and they will be picky about that. So just be aware that the expectation in portrait is that you have 100% control and they expect you to use it. Okay. So the next category is going to be our wedding category. So in IEPPV, it's not this way for all competitions. So please, again, read the rules. This category is meant to stay in the spirit of a photographer working with actual clients on the confines or in the confines of an actual wedding day, a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, quinceañera, those type of things, within the schedule, and you have limited control over your subject. All images photographed must be photographed on the day of the event. So no images of your bride, even though she's your client, like the day before, the day after, if you do formals, things like that. That's not in the spirit of an actual wedding day. Those of us that shoot weddings, quinceañeras, bar mitzvahs and stuff, like, we know that those days are crazy, and the judges will be taking that into consideration. So this is a pseudo photojournalism type category. The judges should be looking at this and thinking like, wow, okay, I wish the lighting was a little bit better, or I wish, that the color of the building was different, but it's a wedding day, I understand. So you should get some grace in there. Okay, so our next category is going to be the photographic artist or master photographic artist. In this category, or basically digital artistry, what you're going to see is this is as much about the image, as the final image, as it is about the skill that it took to build this image. Okay, so if you're really good at compositing, or you add layers, or you did a bunch of Photoshop work to an image, photographic artist is really a great place to put that, because you want to be judged on your ability to do that work, right? So one thing that's very important about the photographic artist, and it's kind of written in the rules here, is the main subject in any major components must be original works by the entrant. So what that means is that, one, you have to have all rights to the image and all the components of that image. But secondly, you can't buy a bunch of composites or backgrounds or layers or smoke, and if the majority of your image is elements that you bought, that's not your work, and you can be disqualified for that. Plus, it just doesn't really speak to your ability to create, right? Like, all the work should be yours. So read the rules on that. Again, every affiliate is going to be different. And I believe our last category is illustrative or illustrative or open. And basically, images representing an alternative type of creativity, photography, and or not meeting the requirements of any other category. What I would say in this category is, if your image doesn't fit the quick descriptions I've already given you in the other categories, then the illustrative may be a good place for that. And so for example, let's say that I shoot a wedding image and I decide, well, I'm going to completely replace the sky. I want to add some other elements. And maybe I want to push it, I'm going to add some birds, or I'm going to add, new grass, or I'm going to add, whatever. I'm going to put a planet in the sky, right? That's no longer wedding. And it's better that I put that in illustrative, or digital artistry would be another place. So you're going to get more appreciation for that image. If you're shooting a landscape, or you're shooting maybe star trails or something where you've done a whole bunch of compositing and you've removed a bunch of things, and the judges aren't necessarily going to understand the context of your image, sometimes putting it into illustrative can be helpful, because really anything that's in illustrative is more open, right? This is where you experiment. Okay, so now let's look at the 12 elements, and I'm not gonna read through these. You guys can definitely look at these on your own, but I just want to make you aware of them. So these are the 12 elements of a married image. Now, every competition and every judge sort of takes these elements a little bit differently. The guideline is that you look at these elements and they're kind of in order of impact. However, again, a lot of judges don't agree with that. We actually talked about that in one of the episodes where Peter Levshin mentioned that, storytelling's at the bottom, but in no way does he feel that storytelling is the least important. However, each one of these categories are important. So impact, technical excellence, creativity, style, composition, like that's rules of thirds, things like that. Not composition as in building elements like a composite. Presentation, color balance, center of interest, lighting, subject matter, technique, storytelling. And you may want to think that there is a 13th secret in there, like a secret menu, and that is the image title. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Your image title can make or break your image. Okay, now what we're going to talk about is image presentation and the key line, and a little bit about titles. I think that's really important. Something to be aware of is that the way the competition works is that the judge is looking at a screen, a moderator is going to read off the title, and then they show the image to the judge. Okay, so for example, if I had this image, I have an image ready for you. If I titled this image, 2 eyelashes and red lips, and then you saw that as a judge, you're going to be like, okay, I get it. That's kind of obvious, or that wasn't a very clever title, or it really didn't lead me into this. The other thing that might happen is that you get an image like this and they title it Geronimo. And you're like, okay, well, that's not what I expected, right? I expected something different. So the title can oftentimes be confusing to the judges. So, and I didn't pre-write bad titles for you, but anyway, like if you titled this, 2 trees in Papua New Guinea with one in the middle, you're like, okay, I got it, but that's kind of a long title. So the goal is that you really want to have titles that lend themselves to the image, because the judge only has so long. Be careful, don't use technical words, don't use coordinates, don't use numbers, because the person reading them may not even understand. There's tons of places in the world that you go that have complicated names that you think, oh, I'm gonna put this in the title, right? Sunset over whatever. Well, if the person reading the title can't pronounce that word or doesn't understand what it is, like they're gonna ruin it, right? They're gonna butcher it. That's gonna ruin your impact. So be careful with that. So what I would say is go with the simplest image or title possible for your image. So for example, like this image that's going to come up. So imagine you're a judge, you're sitting there. They're going to say, okay, so the next image in the wedding category is quiet. And then that image comes up. Do you think it's a good title? Whatever, but it's simple. It doesn't confuse the judges too much, right? That's really important. That's what we're going for. We want to keep it nice and simple, not too confusing. Be clever if you want, but be wary. Here's an image. This image was titled My Prince Charming. And then that image comes up. So I always try to pick titles that are really simple, couple syllables, easy to pronounce, and really easy to read. Okay, so let's talk about key lines and presentations. So the key line and presentation is really, really important, especially at the PPA, local, state, affiliate level. These presentations are things that really set your image apart from the background, right? So, you can have an image that looks like this, and that's beautiful because it fills the entire screen, but notice there's still a line around the outside edge. That is really to kind of define where the edge of the image is. Here's another one. Notice that key line does not jump off the page, right? Does not jump off the screen. Here's another one. Very, very thin, simple key line. Let me find you another one. Simple key line. Okay, very simple. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that when I build mine, notice how this image is higher. on the frame, right? Has a little bit of a chin. That's that extra space at the bottom. This one I put extra spaces left and right. And this one I put some extra space to the left. And this one I put some extra space to the left and the bottom. Now you don't have to fill the frame, and you don't have to make it all within that frame. And notice the outside frame of this is square, it's not horizontal. So it's going to present differently to the judges. I purposely wanted this image to be deep inside the black space. It's a very tight, beautiful shot of my bride. But if I made this full screen or full frame, it would be unnaturally large. And so think about how you're going to be presenting that. This is another one where, you can see it's full frame horizontal, basically. I put a little space at the bottom, but what I want you to take note of is the key lines. The key lines are clean. The key lines are simple. They're not, that one doesn't even have a key line. They're not overly done. And if you've watched any image competitions or you've entered in competition, you'll notice on sometimes there'll be this really bright white key line that goes around the image, and the judges are like, well, I love the image, but man, that key line's hard for me not to look at. That's what they're referring to, okay? We're going to get into how to do a key line, and I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay, let's talk about key lines, how to save your image, resolution, all those kind of things, right? And I'm going to run through this pretty quick, but I'm going to do this a couple different times because I want you to get a good sense of how this works, right? Keep in mind, there's more than one way to do this. This is not the only way, but this is a really basic starting way. And I think that if you start here, what you'll find is that you're not going to get a lot of negative comments about your key lines in your presentation. You may get some suggestions, and you get fancier from here, right? So let's just start with something really simple. So let me get you over to my computer. Okay, and so let's say that I want to take this image and I'm going to create a mat for it, or a presentation for it. There's a bunch of different images. We're going to come back to a couple of these, but this is one that I wanted to pick. So I'm going to bring this into Photoshop. So we're going to go edit with Photoshop. There we go, edit. I'm just showing you the real-time process here so you can kind of see what I do. All right, so now this image is in Photoshop. However you got it into Photoshop doesn't really matter. You may have an image that you've done a lot of work with and you've just decided, okay, I'm going to open it in Photoshop. Great. Now what we want to do is we're going to do File, New, and we want to start with a new image that's 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. Because remember, the rules say the longest side has to be 4,000 pixels. So that's the longest side, whether it's vertical or horizontal. Then set your resolution to 200. I'm going to do 8-bit because this is going to be streamed over the internet. When I enter these competitions digitally, it doesn't make any sense to enter them in 16. So you might as well just save them as 8-bit. If you have some banding in the sky, things like that, that's usually a sign that the image has been processed too far before it's been presented or this has been done. So, and I'm okay with this RGB color space because quite honestly, it's not going to matter if it's done right. So create. All right. So now you got this big blank black square. Perfect. I'm going to go back to the tab that has my image, grab the move tool. Now I know I'm moving kind of fast. I will come back to this later. I'm going to do this a couple times for you. Drag it from the image and drop it on the tab. Bring your pointer down, drop it in the middle of the black. All right. Command T. This is how we're going to resize our image. Don't worry about your image quality. It's not going to affect it. We're not printing this thing 60 inches. We're showing this on a 72 DPI monitor over the web. Okay, so it's not going to matter. So I want this to have a bigger space at the top than I do on left and right. And then in the bottom, I want even more space. So let me show you how I might do that. So if I can't get it perfectly centered, dragging it left and right, that's not a problem. But I can kind of see that that's the size that I want the image to be. So hit enter. So now what we're going to do over here on the right, Command or Control click both layers, grab the move tool, the top arrows there, and I'm going to align this with these alignment tools. I'm going to align it horizontally. I'm not worried about vertically because I can hold down the shift key, grab my layer. I can move it up and down. I'm not gonna lose my horizontal. Okay. That's about where I want it. So now I'm going to crop it. So grab your crop tool and just drag that bottom up. Oops, it's misbehaving. There we go. Grab the bottom up. I'm just doing this purely visually or by my eye. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. I like it. That's great. I got the chin at the bottom. I got some headroom up here. I got my left and right. That's really good. So when this comes up on the screen, it's going to be nice and big and bold. There's a nice black space around it. I'm happy with that. If you want to adjust it, you always can, right? You can always come back and crop it. And remember, because this is 4,000 pixels and we've only cropped the vertical space, not the horizontal space, it's 4,000 pixels wide. So image is sized. We're done. Now let's put a keyline on there. So this is really simple. So layer 1 is our image, right? So I'm going to select my image, select layer 1. You're going to go to layer. You're going to go to layer style. You're going to go to stroke. Okay. Stroke dialog box opens up right there. I would suggest that you never go above 3 to 5 pixels. Okay, anything bigger than that is going to get a little obnoxious. So let's do obnoxious. And there we go. So if you did that, the judges are going to complain. Rightfully so, because it's distracting. It's going to take away from the image. Even if you said, oh, I'm going to grab a cool color. I'm going to be very clever. I'm going to do orange, or I'm going to do blue, or whatever. I'm going to do purples. Like, oh, I think that's great. Nope. Judges will not like that. I promise. So let's go super simple, right? Super simple. Let's do white, 3 pixels, and roughly 50 opacity. Now you notice that line disappeared. So let's up our size to 5. Okay, I like that. That works good for me. That's nice and simple. So that key line is barely there. This is where you want to start, right? I'm going to turn that key line off. Turn it back on. There it is. I'll turn it off again. Turn it back on. So what you have to do now is we're going to save it. So you want to do layer, flatten. I've already flattened it. And if you were working in 16-bit mode, you have to come in and you have to convert it to 8-bit mode. Okay. I just want to make sure that everything is flattened and everything's 8-bit. And then you do file, save as. And if you don't do this in 8-bit, you won't get this next option, but we're just going to save this as test. JPEG, and I'm going to hit save, embed sRGB color space. That's fine. Now here's where you get your quality settings. So right here, right below the preview button, if you don't have the preview button checked, you won't see it. Notice that it shows that this image is going to be 2.5 or 2.7 megs. Well, the rules say to save it at like 10 to 10 quality or 3.5 megs max, roughly. So I don't need to reduce this. I don't need to reduce this image quality at all. I can just say, that's 2.7, I'm good. Hit OK. I've saved that image. I'm done. So that's how you would do that. So let's go ahead and do another one. Okay, I've already brought another image into Photoshop. And this is an image that I'm going to play with. Now, what I want to do first is I'm actually going to crop this image. Now, I always suggest that you do as much work in the raw as possible before you bring it into Photoshop. But for the sake of this, I'm going to crop this. There's probably plenty of resolution. There we go. So that's roughly the crop that I want, okay? So file, new, 4,000 pixels, height, width, 200 resolution, 200 DPI or 200 PPI. I do 8-bit RGB, black background, sRGB color space. Super simple. That way everything is the way I need it. Go back to your image, grab your move tool. So we click drag, hover over the tab, bring it back down over your image, your black background, let go. There it is. Command T, grab a corner. I'm going to size that down. So because they're looking I don't know. I want them to look, I think I like that better. So notice that even though they're in a square image, if I put it over here, that creates tension to the left, like they're looking into that corner. So you could do that if you wanted to. But what I want to do is I want them to have some space to look into. So I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to say, okay. Now I don't really know what I'm going to do for a key line. So let's see. So I'm going to go back to layer, make sure your layer 1 is selected, go to layer style, go to stroke. And I can see right now my previous settings are not showing up super well. So maybe if I make that key line even a little bit bigger, it does need to be a little bit bigger and maybe a little bit brighter. And let's pick a color from the image. Let's see if I can get a yellowy tone. I like that. That's good. Now that's 10 pixels wide, so it's wider than I initially said, but I think it works in this image, and I'm going to pull the opacity down just a tad. Something like that, right? Something simple. Again, you need to experiment with this, play with this yourself. You'll figure it out, but go simple. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this down. So it looks like the top and bottom are about the same. You can get in there and measure this if you need to. Okay, I like it. Now, if you wanted to measure this, what I would do is I would grab the corner of your ruler. If your ruler isn't shown, go to View, Rulers, or Command R, grab that corner, drag it, and put those crosshairs right on that top corner. And then what you can do is you can click and grab your ruler edge and grab this guideline in. Grab another guideline in. And then look at the sizes, right? So if we look over here on the left, it says 0 all the way down. So right about there, is like, what is that? Like 6, oh, just over 6 something. And I have the readout, right? So it's 659. So that's 659 from 0. So this one should be about 659 from 0, which 659, 58, right about there. So if I wanted to, I could grab my move tool, pop that over, Command H to turn those guides off. I'm good. Now, let me show you something. Let's imagine that you decided that you wanted to be using a white background, and that's fine. You can absolutely use a white background, but let me show you why I want to caution you with that. So the white background is bright. It's bright to the judges. It's bright to their eyes. It doesn't always work. So if you're going to use a white background, make sure that it's on the correct image. The next image I'm going to do for you, I'm going to do a white background, kind of give you a little bit more of a classic look. But then again, File or Layer, Flatten. We want to make sure that our layers are flattened. File, Save As. There we go. Make sure it's JPEG. If you submit a PSD or anything else or a TIFF, we're not going to take it. And then hit save after you name it. And again, see this right here, the sizing under preview. You'll only see that, by the way, if it's an 8-bit flattened image. It says 6.6 megs. Slide that to the left. Now it says 2.6. If you want to get clever, you can kind of come back to an 11. But I promise you that between 12 and 8 and 9, you cannot see a quality difference. The judges will not see a quality difference, okay? So you're fine. But if you want to keep those pixels a little bit happier, then you can do that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up another image. We'll do one more. Okay, here we are back in Photoshop. And I've got an image. Now I'm going to put this one on a white background. Now, again, I want to caution you, white backgrounds can be very challenging. They can look really nice. One of my friends has entered some images and he likes the traditional white background. It's perfect, but you got to be careful how you do it and just expect some comments. The judges generally don't like it, and that's unfortunate. But I'm going to go through the same exact process of creating, and I'm going to leave that black. I'm not going to change it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to duplicate that layer. So I'm going to do a Command J, and then I'm going to use the bucket. And I'm going to fill it with white. The reason I'm going to do that is because I want to see the difference between the two. go over to the tab, grab my move tool, drag that guy in, let go, Command T, size it down. Now for this, I'm going to go with a little bit more traditional, like what you might do for like a gallery presentation or something. So I'm going to go with a thinner white border, and I am definitely going with a chin on this one. So I definitely want a little space at the bottom. All right, hit enter, hit crop. I'm going to bring that over right about there. Now, when I eyeball these, my goal is to see if this corner lines up. So that's how I do that. Okay, so there we go. Maybe a little too much of a chin on that one, so I'm going to bring it back down. Grab my move tool. Actually, I'm not going to do the heavier chin. I don't think I like it. So with that in mind, I'm going to resize my image a little bit. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to have to go back. I'm going to resize my image just a tad. Now at this point, if I really wanted to resize the image, I would go all the way back to the beginning, because anytime you do a free transform, you go smaller, you go bigger, you go smaller, you go bigger, you are going to ruin the quality of the image. But I can't change the maximum pixels on the height of this, so I couldn't just crop the chin off. I had to actually resize the image inside, because remember, the maximum length is 4,000, and we don't want to go less than 4,000. Okay, so be very careful with that. All right, there we go. I feel that's better. So now, if I want to make sure that this image is centered, right? Like let's say I can't eyeball it. That's no problem. Select the image and select the background layer. All right, Command or Control click, grab your move tool, and then at the top, you'll get these alignment options. So I'm going to align it horizontally. I'm going to align it vertically. Bam, dead center. Now I'm going to select my layer. Layer 2. That's my image. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go layer, layer style, stroke. And in this case, what I may want to do is I may want to do a black key line or a medium gray key line. Let's just see, because I have white at the top, a gray, and a black at the bottom. So let's just see how this turns out. Maybe something like that. Yeah, kind of like that. There you go. If I was to go with a black key line, that would look nice too. Actually, I like that better. There you go. Maybe 5 pixels. Yep, I like that better. And I'm going to go with 100% on opacity, because maybe not 100%. Bring it down. See, you just got to play. You just got to play. Okay. So I really like that. And that's got a white border. Now, again, they may not like that, right? So see how the difference is with that image with the black background. Okay. See how the image pops off the background, where this one sits in the image in the background? Entirely up to you. Do it however you like. I think that if you go with a white background, like a white edge like this, I think you're going to find that the judges are going to want to comment on it. I just think that's what's going to happen. So we want to give the judges the least amount to talk about. Okay, one more. File. What do we do? Layer, flatten. I actually have an action to do this for me. And I know it's an 8-bit, so I'm going to do File, Save As. Now, depending on the competition you're entering, they're going to have rules on how you name them. Okay, and this is going to depend on whatever category you're in, or whatever competition you're in. So make sure that you look at the naming architecture for the competition so that you can name them correctly. Okay. Depending on like IPBV, before we used to have it where you had to put the category underscore, the title underscore, and your membership number. We're now going to a different system, which PPC uses. I know PPOC uses. I think PPSDC uses. If you guys are familiar with those, it's called printcomp.com. And they have a different system. So make sure you read the rules on how to name. That can be very, very, very critical. So I think that's it. I think we've covered everything. We covered categories and titles and how to build your key lines and given you some tips on what the categories are, master versus regular. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to IEPPV at president at IEPPV.com, imagecomp at IEPPV.com. That's imagecomp at IEPPV.com, and we're happy to help you. You can reach out to us at our Facebook page, IEPPV. We have a YouTube channel. You can reach out there. Just reach out to us, and we're happy to help you.